Welcome to Hermitage Farm, a cornerstone of Kentucky's thoroughbred breeding industry for nearly a century. In 2025, we launched our inaugural breeding syndicate, the My Charmers Syndicate, and with shares selling out in record time, we knew we had to do this again. So we're here today to talk to you about two new offerings that we have, the Indian Miss Syndicate and the Seattle Dancer Syndicate. I'm Melissa Cozart, Hermitage Farm's Equine Operations Manager, and today I'm here with Brian Knippenberg, our farm manager and trainer, and Chad Schumer, International Bloodstock Agent. In collaboration with Chad and his 30 plus years of experience in horse sales, we're going to start off today's discussion with the Indian Miss Syndicate. Named after our unassuming broodmare turned broodmare of the year, Indian Miss, the Indian Miss Syndicate offers a unique opportunity to engage in thoroughbred ownership. Indian Miss began her career here at Hermitage being very modestly bred, and she ended up producing champion sprinter Maitoli and four-time graded stakes winner Hot Rod Charlie. While many of you may be current syndicate members, we know this is new to others, and we want to take this time to answer important questions about how the syndicate system works, when and how horses are selected, why we chose these models, and much more. So let's go ahead and get started. Chad, I'm going to start with you first. Can you explain what bloodstock is and what exactly is a bloodstock agent?
Sure. Everyone's familiar with the term livestock. Bloodstock only differs from that in that they're blooded animals. Records are kept of their pedigrees. And so sort of an old term that's kind of stuck, and that's what we use to describe thoroughbred horses.
What sort of experience have you had with syndicates in the past?
Well, this particular syndicate that we have right now is off to a good start. We've had 3 live foals, which is fantastic, all colts. And we've already made a profit on one of the mares that we bought. So I'd say it's been a good experience so far.
Fantastic
yes,
experience.
I think you can say that. Yes.
With a better understanding of the role of a bloodstock agent, let's talk a little bit about thoroughbred sales in general. There are major sales in various states held throughout the year, but the predominant sales are right here in Kentucky, starting off with the Keeneland September yearling sale and followed closely by the Keeneland November breeding stock sale. In terms of volume and gross sales. As with any transaction, you have a buyer and a seller, and as we just discussed, an agent. So Brian, can you elaborate on what the seller or consignor's role is at a sale?
The seller in the small 3 days that you're just the sale is responsible for presenting the horse, leading the horse to the auction ring. A little bit of salesmanship. Hermitage Farm, we're blessed, and we have almost 100 years of selling fantastic horses, so we don't have to do a lot of salesmanship. Our name will bring people to the barn. Leading up to the sale, some sellers, as they call them, do nothing. They don't even meet the horse until they arrive on the sales grounds. Hermitage is very unique, and we're one of the few farms that still we do all the preparation starting about 90 days before the sale, including grooming and teaching the horse to walk and have manners and be ready to present. When you're at the sale, you've got about 49 seconds, in the ring to make sometimes a 7-figure deal take place. So really, it's the 90 days before that 49 seconds that really count. And so Hermitage has a lot of experience in that. So when you're selling with Hermitage, not only are you represented for the 2 or 3 days you're on the sales grounds, but we actually take care of the animals for the months leading up to the sale.
Well, in a syndicate like this, and in many instances, like the foals are actually born here. So we've worked with them from the day that they're born until they actually leave here to go to sale, and makes our staff very familiar with them and their quirks and how best to show themselves.
Very much.
Chad, with a syndicate like the Indian Miss Syndicate, what is the main goal?
Well, I think the main goal is profit, and that's maybe an obvious thing to say, but that is in fact the case. The other goal of it, I think, is to be inclusive to all the shareholders, so that they can experience the entire process as if they owned the horse wholly without all the expense and risk and exposure if they in fact did.
I think that's a great way to get started. This industry is not always the most inclusive, so finding those niche markets and ways to get involved, even in small amounts, is a fantastic opportunity.
Well, when you consider we're buying 3 or 4 mares, 5 or 6 mares for $500,000, that's an incredible outlay for one person. But if it's just a share,
Right.
you've got as much of an interest as anyone else and can enjoy the process.
So what would be the plan for this type of syndicate? Like, are we buying pregnant mares? Are we buying open mares? What
We
are
are.
we doing?
We're going to try to buy pregnant mares. The current syndicate that we have was based on an average price of about $75,000 per mare. So in this particular syndicate, we're raising the ante,
Okay.
and we're looking for a higher quality mare, which we hope would result in a higher quality return.
Sure. Okay. In terms of reselling, is there really any benefit in targeting the weanling sector of the thoroughbred market?
Yes, I think so. It's a smaller market than the yearling market. So in September at Keeneland, in the yearling market, you're looking at about a 4,500 lot consignment of horses. When you're selling weanlings, it's probably 1/3 that amount.
Yeah.
So from a very simple supply and demand perspective, I think we have an advantage bringing a quality weanling to the market.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more. As Chad outlined, the weanling market is exceptionally strong and can often lead to the greatest return on investment. In 2025, gross sales at the Keeneland November sale reached a record of more than $246 million, with about 850 weanlings selling for just over $91 million. And I don't know if you guys agree, that was, in all honesty, one of the strongest commercial
without a
markets
doubt.
I have seen.
Without a doubt.
Brian, how many mares are we planning to buy with the Indian Miss Syndicate?
3 up to 5, something in the $75,000 range, as Chad said.
Okay.
Yeah, so of all the money that's been raised, we have a set amount for purchasing horses, and then a set amount set aside for the production cost of raising those horses. So it's really exciting that you're not going to get a monthly bill if you do this. You pay in, and hopefully 7-8 months later we just mail you a check.
Yeah,
so
that would
it's a really cool setup.
ideal. Chad, in order to acquire brood mares within this range, how many do you think are going to start on your list?
Well, we cast a very wide net. We have to. So I think we probably look at 100 to 150 a day, and then take that number and whittle it down based on physical, cover date, pedigree, assessments at the barn, an idea of what they're going to bring, and then we try to bring that number to a much more manageable number in terms of a bidding list for the day.
Sure, that makes sense, because we can't honestly bid on 150 horses
No. Well, we
per
can
day. When do you expect the mares to be cataloged and available for inspection?
The catalog usually comes online about a month before the sale.
Okay.
So that's generally the 1st of October, and that gives us 30 days to start evaluating what's in the sale, making lists, getting started.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. It's a lot of work crammed into a little bit of
It
time,
is.
but I feel like it leads to overthinking if you give it too much
Yeah,
time.
for sure.
So with these brood mares, since we're going to be buying pregnant mares, do you have any covering sires of interest that you're wanting to target or think you might want to?
Yeah, this year we targeted both freshman sires and first-time covering stallions, and we also targeted prominent commercial stallions. But you just never know until you get there how things are going to play out.
Right.
This particular year we bought 3 mares in foal to first-year stallions, and the weanling market absolutely loves first crop stallions.
Right.
They bring multiples of the stud fees. So I think from that perspective, we're in a good spot with this syndicate. With the next one, I'd like to have more of a mix of proven commercial horses to go with potentially first crop stallions.
Okay. I think that's a great plan. We've had good luck with the first crop sires.
We have.
But right now, we have such a strong market of stallions that are coming to the races that I think that you'll see an increase in their progeny value too.
Oh, I would say, yeah.
So Chad, after the mares have delivered their foals in 2027, are they going to be rebred before we sell them?
They are. We have included a small budget for covering fees for when they're rebred.
Okay.
Typically, the mares we're buying are going to be of a lesser value without the foal they're carrying. So in other words, we're oftentimes buying the foal in utero. So that is more valuable than the mare. So for example, if we bought a mare for $80,000 that was bred on a $100,000 service fee, we would obviously breed her back on a much, much lower stud fee because the market is essentially saying she has a negative value.
Right.
So we do plan to recover the mares so that we're able to sell them, but at a much, much lower fee.
Okay, well, I think that's reasonable to do. We want to be able to protect our investment and maximize profit where we can. To clarify that a little bit, Brian, once the 2027 foals are born, are the shareholders going to be responsible for any stud fees with those particular foals?
No, prior stud fees are reconciled prior to selling the mare, and then the stud fees for the breeding that we will be responsible for are already established in the budget.
Okay.
So there will never be any call for cash or anything like that because the budget is already allocated for those stud fees.
Okay, good. Again, all inclusive, one-time fee. It
Yeah,
makes life
exactly
so
right.
much easier.
For all involved.
Yes. So when we go to sell these mares, we have a finite amount of time in the breeding season. What happens if one of the mares isn't pregnant at the end of breeding season? Is she still going to be sold with the syndicate, or what are the options?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still the best path forward. And as Chad kind of alluded to, the criteria for these mares that he's bidding on, we're placing 80-90% of the value on the fetus, on the baby she's carrying. So obviously, when we sell her again, it's better if she's pregnant. But the math is structured in a way that is not the worst news in the world. It's a great safety net that we're essentially appraising the mares based on what is in utero. So if worst case scenario happens and she doesn't get pregnant, then you still put her in the marketplace and take her, stop incurring the cost of having her in production.
And then no stud fee.
And then no stud fee, yeah. So really, it just about washes out, really. Yep.
So since we're talking about reselling and we're going to sell both mares and foals, ideally in the same sale, are we selling them together like as a package, or are they sold individually? How does that work?
They will each be cataloged individually. I mean, each one is its own freestanding item for sale, essentially. Typically, since the catalogs are arranged by alphabet, they will sell side by side.
Okay.
So, but and a buyer, of course, is free to be enamored with the foal and Leslie buy its mother, or vice versa.
Right.
But they're not marketed in that way.
Okay. But it is helpful to have a mare and a foal together, because then you can say, like, this is what this mare has produced. And
in the purchases we've already made, if any of those mares Chad was looking at had a baby, we of course got the baby out, and looked at it. And some cases, for a whole nother deal, we were bidding on that baby. So, yeah, seeing the baby it's like a great opportunity.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Let's get a sneak peek of what you might
Yeah,
get.
right. Exactly right.
Is there any possibility that any of these horses may not sell?
There is always the possibility that a horse may not sell, such is the nature of an auction. But it is our job to appraise them to the best of our abilities, try to line that appraisal up with what the market expects these horses to bring, and therefore make a sale happen.
Okay. And so ideally then none of these foals would be kept for racing.
Well, none of these foals will be kept by the syndicate as it is for racing.
Okay.
We could possibly form another syndicate or a partnership to race or resell any of these, but per the terms of this syndicate, everything is being sold.
Got it. Okay. Well, that keeps everything on a clean slate
so.
and gives some other opportunities to come then. So since we've reached the point now where we're actually talking about selling future weanlings, we're going to take this time to start talking about our next syndicate offering, which is actually a weanling to yearling offering called the Seattle Dancer Syndicate. This syndicate honors Hermitage Farm's world record high-priced yearling Seattle Dancer and takes syndication to the next level, focusing on the yearling sales. And this is a time at which these horses are potentially at their most valuable before they're either proven or disproven as an athlete. So Chad, when you're buying weanlings to sell or pinhook into a yearling,
Sure.
what type of horse are you looking at? What are you going after?
Well, I think for the price range that we're looking at, we're looking for value. So value generally amounts to a certain level of immaturity with the horse. What I mean by that is growth immaturity. We want a horse that has got good conformation, is a nice type, good sized, but we can hopefully see the potential for it to become even better than what it is at the moment.
Because if it's at its peak, then you're paying a
If
premium.
you're paying at peak, you're going to be selling probably for the same price.
Okay.
And we don't want to just trade dollars for dollars.
That makes sense, because you're incurring costs in the middle.
Indeed. Significant ones.
Yes. So is there really any benefit as opposed to buying weanling, or as opposed to selling weanlings? What is the benefit of buying weanlings and then selling as yearlings?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is sell the most commercial product available, while at the same time, in looking for the weanlings, I would prefer to shop for older proven stallions, such as Oscar Performance, Tis the Law, Liam's Map, McLean's Music. There's so many horses out there that as yearlings could bring any price.
Mm-hmm.
But as foals, a lot of the buyers are looking for what they know is going to be a successful return, and that's usually a first crop stallion or a stallion that's very hot at the moment.
Okay, well, that makes sense. You had some really good luck with an Army mule, I
I
believe,
did,
in
yeah.
September last
we have.
year.
Yeah, we've
So-
had trying to stay away from what everyone else is doing is generally the best practice for making profits. When a horse is very hot, now we have a mare pregnant to Vacoma, which we were lucky to get, but if you have any Vacoma, anything, you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
He is absolutely on fire, and it is ascending as a stallion. I think what we have to do is either identify horses that are going to go along that same arc or look for undervalued opportunities.
Okay. Because there's always going to be a buyer that is
Of
looking
course.
for those horses that
Sure.
that'll pay any price.
Well, it's a
Just
much bigger
one.
market in September.
Mm-hmm.
No trainers, end users, very few end users are shopping at the November sale
Mm-hmm.
for foals. Whereas when they come to Keeneland in September, they're looking for either horses to race or horses to pinhook.
Okay.
And it's a much, much larger market.
Yeah. As Chad outlined, the Keeneland September market, the yearling market in general, is incredibly strong, and it's one of the most sought after sections. And the goal of the market is maximum profit.
Absolutely.
In 2025, the Keeneland September yearling sale had another record year. With more than 3,000 horses exchanging hands for $546 million. And that was up 24% from 2024's record yearling sale. So,
Yeah, and it was a world record for a thoroughbred auction.
yeah. Brian, what are some of the requirements you're going to look for in weanlings and yearlings?
So for this syndicate specifically, like Chad said, you're looking for. So I sort of have a formula. I've done much more of this than I've done with the pregnant broodmares, but the formula I sort of use is you look at the page, the catalog page. They're the horses' relatives are on that catalog page. And if the yearling is by Stallion X, I always go to Stallion X's if he has a sale history, median and average. And then I look at that physical and I decide, is that a median or average page, and is this a median or average physical? And you have a pretty good indication of what that horse should be worth.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to do is, in this model, as Chad said, I don't want to butt heads with an end user in the auction ring. So if this thing is already looks like a racehorse, has been super well prepped, way above average physical, way above average page for the stallion, you already know you're sort of wasting time. We're looking for a horse that maybe wasn't prepped great, or something that I've had a lot of success with is absorbing a little bit of surgical risk.
Mm-hmm.
These horses are heavily devalued if they have a slight, orthopedic issue that we have a ton of experience correcting here at Hermitage. So I love a horse that maybe is an above average physical, average or above average page, maybe is falling through the cracks because it has a little, needs a minor surgical procedure, and you get great value for that. They'll devalue that horse by $30,000 at the weanling sale. You fix it for $3,500 and you bring it back as a yearling, and you're heavily rewarded for that. So I've had a lot of luck with that. It's not the nicest thing to say, but you're looking for somebody making a mistake a little bit. Like
Absolutely.
we're just blessed here at Hermitage. We have 100 years of knowledge here. So you look at maybe they aren't taking care of the feet just right, or the horse wasn't very well groomed. So you're just looking for a soft spot in the marketplace that you can bring back and be rewarded for. And it's not the easiest thing in the world, but they are available. But that's always the formula I use. Is this thing going to sell above or below the stallion's kind of median sale price? So obviously we're looking for weanlings that will sell below, that we can make into a yearling that will sell way above.
Yeah.
So
Do either of you have any issues with birth dates with weanlings?
I don't. I mean, generally, if a person brings a late foal to the sale, they are going to be penalized. And that is true to some extent as yearlings, but they can make up a lot in that year between November and September, a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the market is more forgiving of later foals as yearlings, less forgiving as foals, so we probably have to explore.
Yeah, I would say so.
yeah, that's a soft spot for me, especially again, just to keep plugging Hermitage. But again, if you see, you have a May foal, and then it's also behind even for its contemporaries that are May foals. You bring them here and you put them on this grass at Hermitage and you put them on our feeding program, you can make up that ground. So there is certain buyers that I think have a cutoff date. So you have to be aware that, if you're buying a really late May foal, when you bring it back as a yearling,
Sure.
there is people that won't go past May 15th. So you don't get crazy late, but that's almost something I look for. Maybe the farm that is selling that baby has thought, oh, this thing is too small, it's too late. They want to sell it early.
Right.
They don't want to raise it, and I know that we can bring it here and raise it nicely. And so, yeah, that's actually something that is important to me. Where I do penalize a horse is if it's very early and it's tiny and immature, and then you think, well, this is a horse that's
It's
not going to mature and improve, right? Yeah, so I would be more scared of a January that's small and immature than say a May that looks a little bit behind.
Yeah.
And in terms of what Brian was saying about taking advantage of the marketplace, if a seller brings a foal to the sale, like weanlings, they're weaned at 4 and 5 months. So if they're born in late April or early May, they've just been weaned. They usually drop off physically, and they don't necessarily have time to recover in just a few weeks for that November sale. Whereas a few months later, they might look amazing.
Yeah.
So I think if we were going to name one particular niche we were looking for, later foaling foals, weanlings
exactly
in
right.
November would be a strong opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So something that's interesting, and this is just economics, but say a large farm with a large herd of horses. Farms are making business decisions all the time. You're not going to bring your brood mares to that sale and let your brood mares go if you're a farm that's going to stay in business for decades. You will maybe say, well, these would be good yearlings, but we need cash right now. And you would sell those weanlings in November or January for cash flow. January in particular, because taxes and things like that come up. So there is. It takes a lot of wading through the weeds to find them, but there is a lot of opportunities with the weanlings to find soft spots.
So with this weanling to yearling syndicate, how many weanlings are we looking at potentially buying?
4 to 6, I think, in the $50,000 to $60,000 range. I think those type of horses have a lot of potential to be 6-figure horses. This is not warranted, but those, a $50,000 horse could be $125,000, $150,000 yearling. $150,000 weanling, you've got a little less top end unless something really great happens. So that's that nice range that has a lot of top end to it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to double or triple your money in a few short
Obviously,
months.
right. When if you're trying to double 300,000, you're also trying to sell that horse to a much smaller demographic of buyers. So that's really sort of a sweet spot to buy the weanlings at.
So Chad, when you're looking at weanlings, how does that differ from looking at pregnant brood mares?
Well, generally they're much smaller.
And ideally not pregnant.
Yes, ideally. No, obviously, when you're looking at a pregnant mare, you're looking at a finished product. She's not going to grow. She's not going to change. It is what it is. When you're looking at a foal or a weanling, you're not looking at a finished product. You have to imagine what that horse is going to look like a year down the road as it grows and develops. So it's a completely different mindset when the animal comes out.
Yeah, you definitely have to have some creativity and imagination, for sure.
And some experience in knowing, if you see a particular horse that's kind of poor or immature looking as a foal, but you've bought ones like that before with the same frame or even the same pedigree, you're inclined to give it another shot.
Right. So are you going to be targeting a specific point in the sale, like certain books? You're going to look at all weanlings? What does that look like?
Once again, we're probably going to cast a very big net. I'm going to cause a lot of extra work for poor Brian. But
I love doing that.
But at the beginning of the sale, we shouldn't be able to afford things. But as Brian stated quite correctly, circumstances, you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is in a bad situation, or who knows why, they may have no reserve whatsoever
Yeah.
on a foal, and if it's in the wrong time of the day, the wrong time of the sale, it could fall through. So we will be shopping, probably not with a lot of success in book 1 and book 2, but we will try. And then our price point most likely is in book 3 and 4.
Yeah, okay. Talking about books then, when you're looking at reselling as yearlings, would you assume that those horses would likely fall within the same point of the sale, or you think that they might
No,
be
not
earlier?
necessarily at all. No, it's a completely different market. So, you have to remember, again, because the wheelings market is so much smaller, you're looking at 1,500 or so cataloged. That's only 1,500. There's 4,500 in September. So if you're, lot 1,200 in November, that could move up to lot 300
Yeah,
in September.
okay.
So
Yeah, so and not
it
necessarily
just
apples
totally
to
depends.
apples
No,
then.
absolutely not.
Okay. Brian, can you explain what it is you're looking for with the weanlings and how that either complements or in some cases negates what Chad has figured out through sales research and pedigree?
Yeah, I mean, data is our friend, so Chad will be doing a lot of that sort of research. So, like, we can get sale history on the dam, the mare of these weanlings. So, if we see that these people have sold several six-figure yearlings from this mare and they've never sold a weanling, that's kind of maybe a red flag. Like they think they need to get out a little bit early. So data is our friend, but mostly I'll be doing the physical, and I mean, I've been fixing horses for 30 years, so there's I guess again it goes back to that formula. So let's say Chad finds a page he loves. This horse on the profile from the side just looks fantastic, and then there's some conformation issue up front. I mean, we have enough history here at Hermitage correcting conformation issues or knowing which conformation issues go south. So you don't really how should I say it? There's hardly ever a hard pass or a hard fail with me.
There's a lot of maybes.
Right. So you say, like, this weanling should be $80,000, and the page indicates that. Looking at the horse from the profile, it indicates that, and then you have this knee that the angle isn't right on. Then you just decide, well, I can fix this knee, but we need a $20,000 discount here when we purchase it, because we're going to spend a little money fixing that knee, and we're taking the gamble of
It going the right way.
that knee being able to be fixed. So, I mean, I have a really big appetite for fixer-uppers as it is, and that is how you find the soft spot in the marketplace, because that's what we do with our own horses that we raise here. So, yeah, you just that kind of that formula I talked about, and then you put a number on what you can live with if there's some little flaw or some little thing that takes it to the wrong side of the average.
So with both of the syndicates, once all the horses are purchased, are they coming back to Hermitage, or what does it look like after they end up under the syndicate banner?
Yeah, we will get them back to the farm within 24 hours of purchase, and we want them in this program. I think the biggest benefit we have with these syndicates is being able to get them in here into this program that, as I've said over and over again, is almost 100 years old and has had 100 years of success. So we'll get them back to the farm. They'll be integrated right into our herd and be raised just like the horses that were born here at Hermitage. And I mean, just so folks know, we test our soil every year. We test our hay every year when it's purchased. And then our feed is custom mixed, and it's balanced based on those test results. So, I mean, that's not unique. A lot of farms in Kentucky do that, but a lot of farms in Kentucky don't do that. So that's where we have that benefit to really be able to take a weanling and make it into a very nice yearling.
Having discussed how these syndicates are designed to operate, let's go ahead and dive into some of the risks and some of the actual expenses that are covered by the cost per share, and why offering it as a one-time entry fee is beneficial to shareholders. So Chad, the syndicate price per share is all-inclusive, and why is that the ideal way to go?
Well, several reasons. One, for the shareholder, it's extremely easy. You write a check, you receive a check. It's just that simple. for you as the farm, for bookkeeping purposes, trying to, send out 50 individual bills every month would not be ideal and chasing after things. So I think we're trying to make this as convenient for all participants as possible and as easy as we can make it.
Can we expect any other additional expenses throughout the syndicate duration?
You could. They're live animals. We have no control over any kind of veterinary requirements, any kind of emergency surgeries. We have budgeted quite a bit for board and vet, but there are often unforeseen expenses which we can't possibly know.
Yeah.
So that can happen. We have as much of a discretionary fund as we can to make this affordable. But there is some risk, albeit very slight.
Yeah. Okay. So ideally, no more cash laid out, but
There's
in
no plans
in
for it.
an extreme circumstance,
Of course,
it could happen.
To be fair though, all horses are insured.
Yes.
So we do try to minimize the downside for everyone involved and minimize the exposure. But there are just some things you just can't plan for. I mean, that's Mother Nature. So
That's horses.
that's horses, indeed.
So with 50 shares in each syndicate being offered at $12,500 or $10,000 per share, depending on the syndicate,
Sure.
the price per share covers the operating expenses that are incurred. And what could some of those expenses be?
Well, there's obviously the purchase of the horses. There's the insurance, the board, the veterinary expense. We'll have to nominate the foals to the Breeders' Cup. If we were to buy a weanling that wasn't Breeders' Cup nominated, we might want to consider the added expense of doing that. There's commission for buying. There is transportation. So all of that is included in the share price.
Yeah, so pretty much everything that
you
come
can
up
think
with.
of. I think we've even budgeted for re-entering the horses in the Keeneland sale.
We included the sale
yeah.
entry fees and everything. So for a detailed look at what all expenses are included, you can visit hermitagefarm.com and check out the syndicate pages there to learn a little bit more in detail. Brian, since we're talking about board for mares, foals, weanlings, yearlings, what does board encompass?
So board basically is every bit of the day-to-day care of the horse. Traditionally, if you were one individual client of a farm, your board bill would be just its room and board. Your blacksmith and your veterinary expenses would then also be billed through the farm, not marked up, but just billed through. In this model, board is everything. I mean, you're receiving no further bills. So the blacksmith is covered, transportation to and from the breeding shed is covered. If some of these in the weanling syndicate do need medical procedures at a clinic off the farm, that's all covered. Obviously, we feed them, bring them in and groom them every day. The biggest thing you're getting is access to these amazing pastures here at Hermitage, and again, the 100 years of knowledge of raising these horses. But so in this syndicate model, board is essentially just about everything that could come up, except for that slim little scary thing we talked about a second ago, which is not very likely.
Yeah. So with the syndicate, we're actually boarding all of our mares and the weanlings too in the next syndicate at a discounted rate from Hermitage's normal board rate, which is beneficial for our shareholders.
Sure.
Do we charge for foals at the mother's side?
So Hermitage is unique in that it doesn't charge for foals. We do not charge for the foal until the foal is weaned and becomes its own individual. Some other farms do raise your broodmare rate a few dollars for the foal at its side. I've never liked that because it is our job to get a foal at the side of the mare. I don't know why then you would.
I look at it as like we're paying by stall.
Yeah, so once that foal becomes an individual eating its own feed, not alongside its mother eating its own hay, then we start to charge.
Yeah. So Chad mentioned foal nominations in the expense portion of the Indian Miss Syndicate. Can either of you sort of explain what some of those nominations may include outside of Breeders' Cup?
Well, there's the foal registration itself. So there's a fee involved in, as each foal is born, getting them registered with the Jockey Club. We might nominate them. We would probably nominate them to the Breeders' Cup, KTDF, and then simply the sale itself.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much all encompassing in terms of nominations, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I wouldn't. There would be. I don't see us buying Well, I mean, I would think if we bought a European horse, it would be in the European Breeders' Fund,
Sure.
which is, nominal money anyway.
Right.
And kind of the KTDF is kind of interesting because we sort of maybe overlooked this fact, but there could be residual value on these horses, not on the weanlings to yearlings, but on the broodmare side, because
With the KBI.
the syndicate would essentially be the registered breeder. If
Right.
those horses earn money at the racetrack, there is some awards given at the end of each year to the breeders. Now in the weanling to yearling, the farm where the baby was born will
Right,
be that
that won't
person.
be
But
part
yeah,
of it.
so the KTDF is kind of interesting because maybe in 4 years you're going to get a little check in the mail and you have no idea where it came from, and it's because one of these horses won a race. So that's kind of exciting too.
So like Brian said, when we register these foals, it will generally be in the summer of their foaling year. They get registered with the jockey club, so it's sort of like a birth certificate. The owner at the time of foaling is registered as the breeder. So this will be the Indian Miss Syndicate as the breeder. And then also, like Brian mentioned, with the Kentucky Breeders Incentive Fund, the KBIF, the in utero foals, if they end up earning anything, or if the breeders of the Indian Miss Syndicate, those horses end up earning anything, you can have residual value years down the road.
Absolutely.
And some of those races, I mean, you could end up with $3,000 to $10,000 depending on the level of race.
Sure,
And everything.
and it can really add up.
Yeah.
Depending on how many years they race and how many starts they have. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah. Do you think that for Breeders' Cup that it really changes the value of a horse? Like if it's not Breeders' Cup nominated, do you think the horse differently?
That's a funny way to answer that, or I have a funny way to answer that. I don't know that being nominated adds any value to the horse. Not being nominated is a giant red flag to me, because you feel like the person that is selling you this horse didn't even think enough of it to enroll it in the Breeders' Cup program, which is very little money. So seeing that it's Breeders' Cup nominated doesn't necessarily elicit a response from anyone, but seeing that it is not means, or the KTDF or any of them, if they're trying to save $200 at the birth of this foal, then I'm already a little leery of the animal. So it's one of those things that is got value only in its absence, but so I would nominate everything just for that very reason. Especially if you're selling 8 and one isn't, that's what, why didn't they want to nominate this one?
That makes total sense.
It's like the good housekeeping seal of approval. You need it on there for sure.
So we discussed insurance already. We're going to insure mares, foals, weanlings. Are they typically insured for a purchase price, or how is that value determined?
The mares are insured for the purchase price.
Okay.
And what we generally do is, as the mare's foal, we then place coverage on the foal, but because the mare was bought pregnant, we then lower the value on the mare.
Right, because she's...
That saves us some insurance expense on the mare. We get a bit of a refund, and then taking on the new expense of insuring the foals, that kind of offsets that.
Okay.
With the weanling to yearling syndicate, we're simply insuring those horses and just to make sure that there's no problems during the course of the time that we own them. And then once they're sold, they'll be dropped.
Okay. Will these all be on the same insurance policy?
There'll be 2 separate policies.
Okay.
One for each syndicate.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah, maybe it's important to indicate, just because we take things for granted, we understand, that is mortality insurance. That is not health insurance.
Yes.
That is not worst. That is only worst case scenario insurance. But
no, it includes $5,000 worth of emergency colic surgery coverage if they go into the clinic. That will not be enough ever to cover the cost of that surgery, but it does help offset the expense. And then yes, we're simply insuring them for mortality.
Yeah, and I believe heavily in insurance. I mean, I think you're crazy. Dealing with horses in this price range, you should carry insurance.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate safety net. You're getting back what you have in, essentially.
Sure.
That's insurance premiums on horses are a little bit high, but I don't think you can have enough of it.
They never seem that expensive if you actually
when something goes wrong.
So that's worth noting.
When something goes wrong, they seem like the greatest deal in the world.
Absolutely.
So I believe heavily, and we've budgeted for insurance, so it's not like it's an additional cost in the program.
So let's talk briefly about some non-monetary risks that are associated with horses. Brian, what are some risks that may be part of the foaling process or breeding process that aren't present necessarily with weanlings and yearlings?
So obviously the largest issue of biology that's happening in the broodmare syndicate is you're delivering a baby, which that's probably is the riskiest moment of the mare and foal's life. So in the broodmare syndicate, you're taking on that risk. Again, we're well insured. So from the financial point of view, it's not that big of a risk. If something's going to go wrong, typically that's when it is. Weanling to yearling, I mean, half of my morning is patching up weanlings or yearlings that have gotten themselves in some kind of jackpot in the field. Typically it's superficial, but that is part of raising them. Raising them does look a lot like maybe running the ER. I mean, they're always getting banged up and scraped. That's part of the way we raise them naturally in these giant fields. But worst case scenario, you lose a horse entirely. Very infrequent. The biggest risk would be during foaling, and those mares are going to be insured anyhow. So I think really that's the big difference. We're all equally exposed to acts of nature, running into the fence or doing any of the silly stuff that animals are inclined to do. So,
and that's just it. We're dealing with live animals, so there's just no way of controlling everything.
Right.
And part of what we do at Hermitage is that they're out with free will 18 hours a day on the pasture that has made Hermitage famous, but they're out there making their own decisions, and
they're competitive by nature. They fight, they run. Of course, things are going to happen. So.
We forgot to add the line item for bubble wrap.
Yes.
I need to do that
we
next
need to
year.
add that to the expenses.
So in light of these risks, Chad, why is smaller numbers in terms of total syndicate numbers better? Like with the broodmares, we're talking 3 to 5.
Right.
With yearlings, we're talking 4 to 6. Why is that better than having more if you're just trying to spread the risk around?
Well, financially speaking, the expenses are the same if we buy a mare for $50,000 or if we buy a mare for $500,000. So with us not buying mares at the $500,000 level, I think we have to be particularly mindful of expenses.
Okay.
So keeping the numbers manageable makes it financially viable, so to speak. With weanlings, it's sort of the same thing. We're spreading the risk. If our approach is to try to double our money, and we buy 4, 5, 6 foals, and we're successful most of the time, that's going to be a great return. I just think if you start to have too many numbers, the expenses will eat you alive.
Yeah. You have a greater risk of things going wrong at that point, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in our purchase price for the shares, you also mentioned commissions. Can you explain the difference between commissions that are included at the time of purchase versus commissions that will come out at the time of sale?
So in the business, we pay buying agents a 5% commission when they purchase horses. That's the fee involved. So that is easy to calculate because we know exactly how much money we're spending on the actual livestock, bloodstock, I should say. When we go to sell them, Hermitage Farm, as selling agent, will charge a 5% commission also for selling the horses. But we don't know what they're going to sell for. So we just have to know that when the horses are actually selling, 5% goes to Hermitage, 5% goes to Keeneland or Facing-Tipton. So whatever the horse brings, it's 90% to the syndicate.
Okay, that makes sense. So at the conclusion of the disbursement of the syndicate horses, what sort of return could shareholders potentially expect?
Gosh, that's a tough question to answer. I'd love to say, I'm just going to say this. We're aiming for a profit. Whether it's a 5% profit, a 50% profit, I have no way of knowing.
That's going to be very market dependent.
It's very market dependent. It's dependent on 1,000 factors. So that's hard to say. But what this syndicate is set up as is a scenario where you're writing one check, you're going to get a check back. If every horse died, they're insured.
Yeah.
So you're going to get something back. They will sell for something, whatever that number is. So obviously we hope it's a profitable number, but there is going to be some sort of return.
Okay, so everyone should expect something back.
Absolutely.
Which is, that's a lot more than people can say in the horse business.
Oftentimes
in the
they get a bill.
Yes, right, and nothing else. So with that being said, are there any real tax implications or specific filings required due to the purchase of a share in the syndicate?
We are keeping this very simple. There are ways to set this up as an LLC where each person is involved with a K1 and massive accounting costs. We are simply treating this as a general partnership. You are buying a share in this. Your profit or loss is a tax implication to you as it would be to your income or your financial situation, which we, obviously we don't know. So, look, if you end up paying tax on this, you're welcome.
So what's going to happen at the time when the horses do sell, because you won't receive anything in the year of purchasing, but when you have income received, Hermitage Farm will produce a statement of transactions that all of our syndicate members will get. That way they have that for their records if needed. Brian, aside from any monetary gains, what are some other things shareholders could look forward to here at Hermitage while their horses are here?
Just the exciting thing that we have to offer that's probably different from any other group like this is access to Hermitage. We have sort of a hospitality side here, so we're with the one that we're already doing. We made a trip to Keeneland. We hosted I don't know what you want to call it, a dinner or sort of a cocktail party here. I think, don't we schedule two? Once all the foals are born, we schedule 2 visits for anyone from the syndicate that wants to come out and visit with the foals once they're all on the ground. So just really behind the curtain access to Hermitage. Melissa will give you email updates. You can go to the sale when we sell. You can tag along a little bit at the sale while we purchase. So just really like you get sort of the inside,
You get all the fun stuff,
right? Like you get treated as if you own 1/15 of a horse, or if you own 15 mares here on the farm, you're going to get treated the same way. So it just sort of gives you, just like how we've spread out the risk. You're still getting treated like individual horse owners. So it's pretty exciting to have that access to the farm and get the behind the scenes.
You're getting access that would normally cost hundreds or even millions of
dollars.
Right,
you're owning horses that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're getting access to a farm that costs a lot of people tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in board bills.
So we've covered a lot of material today, and hopefully we've answered many of the questions. If there are any specific questions that anybody has, feel free to reach out to any of us at any time, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. But I wanted to go ahead and recap both of our upcoming syndicate offerings. So Brian, how many are we offering this year?
We're offering 2 syndicates, sort of a copy and paste of last year's syndicate where we're buying brood mares and selling their offspring, and then we are going to do a purchase weanling, sell as yearling syndicate as well.
So what is the minimum purchase in either of the syndicates?
So 1 share is essentially getting you 2%. So we would limit it to, it's not the right word, right? You would be required to buy at least 1 share. If you or a family member or friend want to share that 1 share, we would just need 1 point of contact.
Right, okay.
So minimum buy-in is 1 share, which is the equivalent of 2% of the syndicate.
Is there a maximum number of shares that a person can buy?
I mean, ideally, we don't want one person to buy the entire syndicate. That has not been an issue.
Well, we'll cross that bridge.
Yeah. Or if there's someone out there that wants to do that, just contact Hermitage Farm directly, and we will get you in the business. But no, right now we're not capping it. That wasn't an issue with the last one. Everybody was fair and left plenty for everyone else.
And then Hermitage and Schumer Bloodstock are also going to be shareholders. And why do we feel like that's really important for our shareholders?
Well, I would like to think it gives each shareholder a lot of confidence to know that we have skin in the game. We are not just buying and selling on their accounts, but rather putting up our own money to support our own judgment.
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. And folks may not know, in the syndicate that's currently operating, we actually could have sold out. We could have sold all of our own shares. Selfishly, I didn't want to do it because I believe it's going to be successful. So it would have been nice to have that money up front and have no risk going forward. But I think that this thing has such good potential that we want to benefit from it, same as the folks that are participating.
And I think we should note that Hermitage originally budgeted for X number of shares.
Yeah, we did in fact
cut that number in less than half, I think.
That's true.
To accommodate as many shareholders as we could.
And we could have sold to zero, and I think it's really, one, just selfishly for Hermitage Farm, I think we're going to benefit by owning shares, and 2, I think it's important for everyone that we have equal risk. So.
Indeed.
So, Chad, do syndicate members or shareholders that are interested, do they have to buy into both syndicates? Can they pick and choose? Do they have to have the same amount in either?
No, the only minimum is, as Brian said, it's 1 share or 2% of either partnership. You could buy 1 share in each. You could buy 3 shares in one, none of the other. It depends on their interest level.
Okay.
It depends on what interests you most and what part of the industry you want to be in. I'd like to think most people would want to do 1 of each, but certainly it would be up to them.
Yeah. So what happens if any of the shares go unsold? Which thankfully we didn't have to deal with that.
No,
but
well, I don't think we're going to have to deal with that problem. Likely, if not enough shares sold, either Hermitage or Schumer Bloodstock or some combination thereof would just absorb the shares. But it was not a problem, obviously, for the first syndicate, and we don't anticipate it being a problem going forward.
Okay. So what's the best way for interested parties to request shares?
Well, to contact any of us, you have a website. I have a website. I think you have a specific page on the site for the syndicate. So just call, email, whatever is most convenient, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure you're involved.
Okay. So Brian, when are shares going live for our syndicate members, our current syndicate members?
Right now.
Right now.
First
opportunity.
When the early window goes to the current shareholders.
Yeah, right. And so, the people that are already participating have the first opportunity to get on these 2 new syndicates.
So both syndicates, the Indian Miss Syndicate and the Seattle Dancer Syndicate, shares are available now for our current syndicate members. They will go live at Derby 2026, so go ahead, take advantage if you're wanting to participate. And this is really your chance to get involved and enjoy being part of the thoroughbred industry without exposing yourself to all the risk. And we hope that you enjoy us in these new exciting ventures, and visit hermitagefarm.com if you have any other questions. Thanks.